So can you say for me your name, your role here in the hospital, and the department you work in?
My name is Joyce Afam. I am a case manager here on C4. I am with Case Management and Social Work Department.
Perfect. All right, so I'm just going to go through 5 questions and just answer to the best of your ability. So the first is, how would you demonstrate to your patient or family that you're eager to help them?
Oh, that's easy. First, when I walk into a room and I introduce myself, basically explain my role, because there seems to be a misconception as to what case management does or how they're involved in the whole spectrum when a patient's here. So I take time and just kind of, get it in a way that they will understand it in layman's terms, so that there's no misconstrusions, there's no misconceptions about what my role is going to be during their stay.
And we observe that. So how do you portray to your patients and families that their needs are a priority?
I guess as on a patient-to-patient basis, based on what their needs could potentially be. Sometimes my floor is a little cuckoo, and when they want to speak to me, I may not be readily available, but I always go about showing them and letting them know, listen, no matter if you have to leave me a message, email, any form of communication, so that there is no miscommunication, just utilize it. And we normally come to a pretty good understanding, and they know I'm there regardless.
Okay. So the third question is, how do you relay that you care for them and are vested in the outcomes of their care?
Well, one way I feel that's been effective is when you involve them. When you involve them on every step, every level as to, what your plan is, what are their plans. Because sometimes you may have a plan in place or think is good enough for them, but if you don't share with them and say, well, this is what we hope the outcome would be, how do you feel about it? Who do you need me to collaborate with? Especially when I work with a geriatric population where they tend to forget things. They have dementia and don't always remember. So when I get them involved and I reiterate, hey, remember we had this discussion? And then they're like, yes, oh yeah, did you touch base with so-and-so? And it normally works itself out.
Okay. What challenges do you face in working to remain engaged with your patients and their families? And, in light of you work on a very busy unit, what's going on?
Yes. Wow. I had to think about that question. It can be a challenge because it's such a very busy floor. I try to find ways around it because families, they have a life too. So sometimes, you have to sacrifice, whether it be staying behind later, giving up your lunch break, which is non-existent in my world, but just making it happen. And whether it be getting on a conference call, talking to everybody, getting all the parties involved. That's one way that I overcome some of those challenges. You sacrifice, you do what you need to do as long as the outcome is that the patient has a safe discharge and everybody involved they understand what the plan is and how they can play a part to prevent that patient from being readmitted, and just overseeing their wellness throughout the whole continuum.
Now, this is something not on here as a question, but something that we had noticed when observing you, is that I think it was 3 times you kept asking, "Are you okay? Is there anything else I can do?" You said the same question different way 3 times. Do you notice that? Is that something that you commonly do, like re-asking?
Yes.
And what's the purpose behind that?
The purpose behind that is kind of an assessment in a way for me, for the patient. Because, for example, I may have someone who has some kind of cognitive impairment. Just because they're cognitively impaired doesn't mean I don't want them to engage or be part of the whole process. So when I have people of that caliber, so that I don't seem demeaning or belittling, I always reassure. It's my way of reassuring them, this is our plan. How do you feel about it? Because sometimes they may have doubts, even though we've had a conversation and we've set things in motion, they may say, well, I don't want to do that anymore, and they may not be able to express that to me. So I always make sure we're all on the same accord, because you can have a whole conversation, set things even to the moment that they're getting ready to leave, and they're like, I don't remember talking about that, or I didn't approve of that.
Right.
So that's my way of doing that.
Okay, good. And one of the last questions, if you had to select one thing, what do you think you hear the patients and families voice most frustration about during their stay?
The process. There's a frustration with the process in the sense that they tend to feel that there's not a collaboration, not multidisciplinary. The lack of communication, whether it be from the provider, the nurses not knowing what the doctors are doing, and vice versa. That is the biggest complaint that I have. And when it manifests, we all deal with it as a team. I would speak to the nurse and say, hey, are you aware of X, Y, and Z? It's just an exchange of information. So to prevent that and not having grumpy patients at the end of their stay, that's one way I think we've been able to kind of address that issue. Do we have a long way to go as far as that is concerned? Almost definitely, but I feel that if we all played our part down the whole patient stay, I think it's something that can be rectified. You can speak to that because we recently had that, but as time progressed, I wound up getting her out of here with lesser problems and issues. So yeah, I would say communication.
Okay.
Yeah.
Communication. And then this is not one of the questions, but I notice you use a lot of humor with your patients. So what is it? Is that something you commonly do, and what do you find it does for them?
I do it a lot. I do it to kind of make my patients more at ease, because when you don't know someone and a stranger comes to you, irregardless of how high their positions are or who they are, you never want them to feel little or smaller than you. So when I kind of fill out the person. If they have a sense of humor, I run with it. And you wind up being able to have a whole interview without even them knowing that you've collected all this information. So, quote unquote, and they'll say, oh, I told you that already, but you didn't ask me. I go, yes, I did. You just didn't realize. And when I reiterate, they go, oh yeah, I do remember that. So yeah, humor helps a lot. It helps them.
Helps you sneak it out.
It sure does.
Good. Yeah, no, I noticed it was effective. So. Good. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.